All right, we're live.
Okay, we're live.
Welcome to another episode of the Kava podcast. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Feeling good?
Yes.
I see you got a bottle ready.
Yes. My pre-workout.
Pre-workout. All energized already?
Ready. Let's do this.
Sounds good. Thank you for making it in. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Patricia Yancey-Siakumi. I am 37 years old, and I'm from Los Angeles, California.
All right.
I have lived in the Bay Area for about 6 years now. I am married to a wonderful Tongan man named Alexander Siakumi, and
Tacos for life.
he is like straight from the island.
Yeah.
Been here
Nice.
a month before we got married, and we are expecting our first child in January
Congrats.
2021.
Yeah.
So, really excited about that.
Nice. All right. Can you go ahead and, like I said, how did you grow up?
Okay, so yeah, I was born in I come from a very white American, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of
Yep.
Latter-day Saints, so grew up in a very devout home. I guess growing up, I guess I forgot to mention that I'm a health and fitness coach, and that's actually it plays a really big part in my childhood. I was raised maybe not eating the best foods.
Yeah.
We were meat and potato kind of family.
Traditional American diet?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, standard American diet, the sad diet. We were all about that. I have mom and a dad. I have two sisters, a brother. My childhood was pretty normal, I guess.
Yeah.
There's nothing very standard American childhood.
Yeah.
Nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, obviously religious home.
Yeah.
My parents were really strict with us, so I think for me growing up, I was always kind of I'm the second child. They say the second is the most rebellious one. So that was me.
Yeah.
I fought against all the rules.
Yeah.
I was always questioning why we did certain things, or why we believed certain ways, or why our parents were expecting us to be a certain way. So all growing up, that was pretty much me questioning and fighting my parents every step of the way.
Yeah.
And
If you don't mind me asking, what were the type of things were you questioning, as far as with your parents?
well, I guess growing up in a Latter-day Saint home, we have all of these commandments and rules to follow, not being able to play on Sunday, or I don't know, just little rules that little kids just my friends didn't do those things, or why don't we drink caffeine, or why don't we do this? My parents just had these really strict ways, or why do we have to wear these clothes? Why can't I wear a bikini? I remember being a little girl and being why can't I wear a bikini? It's not that big of a deal. And my parents were no, we only wear one-piece bathing suits. So, things like that. I was always just questioning why we did those things. And I want to say my parents, they did the best that they knew how, but they didn't really do a really good job of explaining those things to me. So I kind of grew up not really knowing the reasons why we were doing the things that we were doing. Even in the church, I never really had my own personal solid testimony of Christ or things like that, because I didn't really make that connection. I didn't know why we were doing the things we were doing, and that was something that I think everybody needs. You need to know the why so that you can progress and be better, but I didn't really know those things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so but my childhood pretty normal, I guess. I'm sure a lot of people struggle with those same things. As for maybe high school, I did the early morning seminary, going to church school every morning. I, of course, followed the rules that my parents set, or pretended to follow the rules that my parents set. Did all the things. I was athletic in high school. I used to run cross country. I played basketball. I liked doing outdoorsy things and being athletic and involved, but still had terrible eating habits, and also kind of grew up in a household where my mom, a lot of people who grew up with like white American mothers, they're like sucked into like diet culture. So like we grew up with our moms like always checking their weight and saying that they're fat and that they need to lose weight. And so we grew up seeing that all growing up. That was definitely something that I saw, and I, as a child, as a teenager, and even as a young adult, I like internalized all those messages that my mom was sending to me about diet and being small and being skinny, which I know is the opposite. Like in Polynesian culture, they're like, eat, you need to be fat. But if white American is like, you need to be skinny, what are you doing? Eat like a bird. But we still had bad eating habits. We ate like lots of junk food, lots of junk like that. But I never really like developed a super healthy relationship with food or with my body or with myself. And so when I went away to college, I went to Brigham Young University and I just did my own thing. I was wild and free, and because my parents never taught me why we do the things we do. I had freedom to do whatever I wanted within reason, because we were at a church school. But actually, believe it or not, in college, I actually developed an eating disorder. So that is, and I think that disordered way of thinking came from what I saw growing up in my family. Like just seeing how women were so obsessed with being small and fitting into a certain mold or looking a certain way. And so when I was in college, I just was like out of control in my life, and the way that I could control those things was to control what I was eating, when I was eating, and I just became very like obsessive about it. And that kind of it created a lot of problems in my life, that just kind of set me on a path towards like leading more like a destructive, unhealthy lifestyle as a young adult, which I think happens to a lot of people. So
you were eating like less?
I was actually, I wasn't anorexic. I would eat too much and then I would throw up.
Oh, okay. So
like
so
bulimia. Yeah. So it's called binge and purge. Yeah. So it wasn't like, I wasn't doing it all the time, but I would do it enough, and enough for it to be unhealthy. And a lot of people who have binge and purge bulimia, like they don't lose weight. So I was never super skinny. Like you just eat, throw up, and then nothing, you're still fat. So you're like, okay, whatever. But so during that time, it was really hard for me, but I didn't really like, and I struggled with a bunch of different mental health issues during that time too, because I wasn't taking care of my body. And I really do think that there's a connection between
your body and your mind.
Your body and your mind, absolutely. Like physical health, mental health, emotional health, like spiritual health, they're all connected. And during college, I actually neglected all of those things. So I want to say like the pinnacle point of my like young adult life that I realized that I needed to like start making some changes was when it was like my last semester of college. Like I had 2 months left and I had a panic attack. I thought I had a heart attack.
Wow.
Went to the hospital and I was like, I had a heart attack. Like I'm dying. They took me right in. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am so, like, I'm dying right now. I just had a heart attack. I'm only 20 years old and I'm dying. And then they like checked everything, and then doctor leaves, and then insert a psychiatrist comes in and sits down and is like, tell me about what's going on in your life. And I'm like, where's the cardiologist? I had a heart attack. I'm dying. And he's like, no, you
could feel like a heart attack.
It felt like a heart attack. And as I've researched after that, I'm like, oh yeah, that was definitely a classic panic attack where I was like not taking, like totally out of control of my life, just making crazy decisions, really stressed out, and just not addressing any of those issues.
I had a friend had a panic attack. And the way she described it to me is just like it's just an overwhelming feeling that you have no control over everything, and it just hits a point where you just lose control, and then boom.
I feel like that's how I was in so many areas of my life.
Yeah.
Like even in my physical health, like I was so out of control.
You feel like everything was out of your control.
All of those things, yeah. Like life was just like crashing down
at one point in time.
Completely crashing down on me. So I had my mini heart attack, and then I realized, you know what? And the doctors prescribed me pills that I was like, I like went home and I was like, I am not gonna take these.
Yeah.
Like he gave me like antidepressants and like all these different things, and I was like, I'm just not gonna take these. So he like gave me sample pills and then gave me a prescription. I never filled my prescription, and I just told myself then, like, no, like if you're feeling out of control in your life, just start addressing these little issues and take care of these things. And so as I started doing those, I started with my spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
I started fixing my spiritual life, which was a total mess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started exercising more.
Mm-hmm.
I started eating better, and I still wasn't perfect during that time by any means. But, you know, all those things combined help you to overcome the like mental struggles that you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had a panic attack after that.
Yeah.
So I feel like, okay, I healed my body through actually addressing the issues rather than just taking a pill and making those things go away.
So after your panic attack, what big changes did you make learning from that experience?
I learned that I needed to actually like slow down
mm-hmm.
and not ignore my problems.
Yeah.
Because I think I was brushing a lot of things that I couldn't control under the rug and just masking them with these different behaviors. Like, oh, I would drink.
Mm-hmm.
I would, you know, overeat. Like all those things were little things that I was like, oh, I have these problems. I'm gonna push them away, and I can't control these over here, but I can control what I put in my mouth, and I can control what I do. And because I was focusing on the wrong things, it just that's like when it exploded. So I had to actually just start looking and evaluating. Like back then I wasn't really big into like doing personal development and stuff like that.
I don't think nobody is in college.
Nobody is in college. If I knew now.
there's no personal growth in college. It's only experimenting.
Yes. In college I had no idea what I was doing, so I just did my best and just started like facing those problems.
It out,
just like figuring it out and like being more strategic about what I was eating and when I was eating and not. And I think if you channel that control in other areas of your life, then it does help. Now, I don't want to say like my eating disorder didn't completely go away overnight. My like anxiety didn't go away overnight. Those are still struggles that pop up here and there, but like over the years, I've just learned how to recognize when they're there, and obviously over the years, I've developed better coping mechanisms. I want to say that happened in 2004, but in 2009, I actually started going to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has like an addiction recovery program. Okay. And so my friend had invited me to go to that program with him and just like learn about what he was learning about. And I was like, okay, might as well. Like, what can this hurt? I don't have any addictions, but sure. And I went in there and I'm like, I'm addicted to food. I literally sat there and listening to everyone else talk, I was like, I have a problem. Oh my gosh. And I think like really ultimately like the key to like, I mean, sometimes we don't realize we have a problem until it's like so big that it's like I'm here, you have to pay attention to me. But then sometimes there's other little ways that you can like identify, oh my gosh, like for me then it was this like silent little aha moment where I was like, all these things that I've been struggling with over the last few years is actually an addiction, and I'm addicted to food. Like, I like food, and I use it in an unhealthy way. Like, I don't use it to fuel my body. I use it to ignore my problems, and I use it to mask the things that I'm struggling with. And I am not alone in the world.
Everybody does that.
I know. You're like, wait, isn't that normal? I'm like, I have a food addiction. But actually sitting there and realizing that this was something that was like impacting my life made a huge difference for me. And of course, didn't end there. Like, that wasn't the end, like, oh, I have an addiction and now I know how to overcome it. Like, it took time to, like, really work on it, and I think it's been, like, a really, really, really long journey. But I think going through that program and treating it like an addiction helped me to, that was, like, my first real introduction to, like, personal development.
Yeah.
Because they have a manual, you follow it, you go through, you, like, fill out all of these, you know, different, you answer all these questions, and it really helps you understand why you're doing the things that you're doing. Actually, what's interesting about that is, like, later that year, like a few months after I went to that first meeting, I went to Tonga for the very first time.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, I've been there 6 times. 6 times, but this is my first trip there.
Yeah.
And the reason why I love Tonga so much is for this reason. I went there with my manual, and I remember studying it in the morning, and I could just really feel, like, a clearness in my mind being in Tonga, because the distractions are different there, you know. I'm obviously, this is like before, this is 2009, before smartphones, like, we don't have all these distractions, but like there they had even less distractions. Like
a simple life.
Like hardly anyone had a cell phone then, like that was not common, and it was just very simple. And so I really got to start working on those things in my, like, that were going on in my life that helped me really dig super deep into why I was doing the things that they were doing. And a lot of them stem back to like things from my childhood and how, not necessarily bad things that happened, but just how I interpreted things that had happened to me when I was a kid. So I could go into detail about that.
That's fine. That's
okay.
Fine.
I'm like, I don't really talk about this, but when my, so when I was little, my dad was always really hard on me, and like, he always expected me to do, the best, like the best of the best.
Like, you wanted you to be perfect.
Yeah, I have a perfection complex. That's exactly it. Yeah, he wanted me to be perfect because he knew what I was capable of, and he knew I was capable of doing more and being better. But he wasn't as hard on my siblings as he was for me. So even though my dad was just trying to help me reach a higher level and help me pull out my true potential, I didn't see it that way.
Did you ever ask your dad why he was more focused on you than your siblings?
I didn't. However, that same year, I got engaged to a guy who asked my dad for my hand in his,
marriage.
Asked for my hand in marriage, or whatever. How do you say that? I don't know. Okay, anyway. And my dad had told him, Patria is my daughter that I know will be able to do anything she puts her mind to, and I have a really high expectation for her. And like, then he came back and told me I didn't marry that guy, but he told me that stuff, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, so just having that little switch, and my dad and I, we always had kind of like a rough relationship growing up, because I thought he like hated me, or he was like mad at me all the time, or he didn't like the things that I was doing. But really, he was like, no, you're capable of more, do more, be better. And then once I realized that, that's when my dad and I, we had that conversation, and we were totally able to repair our relationship, which is actually a huge blessing, because he passed away in 2016, and we had a fully repaired relationship before that happened. And I think uncovering that helped uncover everything else, and has helped me work through the eating disorder, helped me work through the anxiety, the depression, like everything. Like, it helps you work through those things, because you start to just dig at what's inside of you and how you're processing those things.
So growing up, is that what you felt? That you felt like you had to live up to like the standard that your dad placed on you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's where all these problems were originating from?
Of course. Yeah. And I mean, my parents expected me to be perfect in more areas than just my personal life.
Yeah.
Like
in everything.
In everything.
Yeah.
Like you have to be a good church girl. You have to be good at sports. You have to be good in school. You have to be good at all these different things. Like, yeah. And so for me, I just internalized that as like, you're being so hard on me. Like you must hate me. Like, which is funny. Like I had a conversation with my friend once about this same concept where like you can have a family of children and all of those kids could experience the exact same things within their household, see the exact same things, and all of those children could internalize a particular event in a different way.
Or define it differently.
Totally. Like one person could not think anything of it. The other person is like completely traumatized by it, and like everyone can everyone experiences things different, and I think that just leads into like knowing how powerful your mind is, and like sometimes the things that happen to us, it's less about what happened to us but how we interpret what happens to us that influences our experience with those things.
Yeah, that's why I feel like it's very important as a parent to communicate, because if you don't communicate, you just leave it up to the child to interpret however they want to interpret, and that's going to be their definition. But I think a child really needs to hear, this is why I'm doing this. So the message is clear, so they don't like start having crazy thoughts.
Amen. Amen. I truly do feel that way. Like, I'm a nanny now. I've been a nanny for the last 6 years for the same family since the whole time I've lived in the Bay Area, and I always try to implement those same things. Like, when you give a child a rule, when you tell them what you expect of them, tell them why you expect it of them. The why is so important, because if you, and that goes for everything, like everything.
Even adulthood.
Even adulthood, like if
we're still big kids inside.
Like if you don't know why you're doing these things, it's not gonna matter as much.
Especially relationships.
Yes. Like, what is the purpose behind this? Why? Please just let me know. And I think, to be honest, in like Mormon culture, and I think even like questioning things is not like normal. You know, like it should be. I mean, it's taught in the religion itself to question and ask and like ask God, and to like question your beliefs and things like that. But for some reason, like human interpretation has led to like, don't ask, just do it. Just be this way, just follow these rules, just go and do it this way. But that never worked for me. I was never okay with that. So.
Why do you feel like people in churches, they don't take it well when you ask questions?
I think sometimes people aren't necessarily like super secure in what they know.
That's what I feel like.
Like
a lot of them don't really know it the way we thought they know.
But I think too, it's like a never-ending cycle of like people, like if you're raised in a household where you're taught not to question, like don't question your elders, just do what they say. Like my parents were like that. Like why do we have to do this? Because I said so. Like because your elders said so. Because that's just, you have to do it that way. So when you're taught that way, you're kind of taught to be afraid to ask. That's actually something that I really uncovered when I was in Tonga, is that my biggest problem was that I was afraid. Like I was afraid to approach God, or I was afraid that like I would be wrong, or I was like just afraid of those things. And I think that cycle continues. And that's how we get to a place where it's like, oh, don't question, because people are uncomfortable with it because they're not used to questioning when they were a child, or they were put down when they questioned. They've been conditioned not to question. You've been conditioned not to question. Like I never want to give my kids the like, because I said so. I mean, I think maybe a parent can't necessarily give the full reason of why they're doing something, but you can for sure tell your child, I don't really have an explanation for this. But I want you to do it because I love you, and I know that this is going to be better for you, and let me show you why I think this will be better for you. And you can like talk it out with them, rather than just being like, because I said so. Because then if you approach it that way, they can walk away and maybe they don't have an answer.
Yeah, you leave it unclosed.
Yeah, but that you didn't punish them for asking.
Yeah.
And I think I think so many people are punished for asking that they are just like, okay, I'm not going to ask anymore.
Yeah. And I feel like as kids, we're naturally curious.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say, because I said so, the kid's going to keep asking. He's not going to stop. Even if he's afraid of asking, like, you find different outlets to figure out their answer. But if you give them an answer, just tell them, hey, I don't know, then that could be like an answer they can be satisfied with. Okay, my parents said no because, you tell them you love them too. So,
yeah.
See, one thing I do want to cover, because I do know there's a lot of Mormons that watch this. All right. So, you mentioned that, you were rebellious and you kind of like did things your way. And I know a lot of girls that are Mormon, they grow up Mormon with their parents, and, their dad and their parents are strict. They have to be perfect. And, doing your own, living your own lifestyle and doing things your own way, that can be like, those feelings that experience can be like unfamiliar territory for them. So, like, did you ever, when you went to college and you didn't mention you were drinking, like, did you ever feel like, oh wow, like I'm disappointing, how I was raised, they didn't teach me to do this, these certain things. Like, did you ever have that kind of feeling, or did you just I just want to hear your experience, because I do feel like one of the hardest things of being Mormon is trying to fit in this culture. Yeah. And live a normal life. Yeah. The American life, right? Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like there were things that I would definitely hide my lifestyle from my parents, because they were in California, I was in Utah, like, you don't see what I'm doing. Yeah. I definitely would like guard them for that, so I definitely know that I felt a little bit of that, like, oh, I'm gonna disappoint them, and they're gonna be like sad about it. Mm-hmm. But I also knew that like I had to find my own way, and I had to do my own thing. Like,
you have to figure out things for yourself.
Yeah, like for me, that's always like most important. And to be honest, like my little bout of rebellion like only happened for like a couple years, and then I decided, okay, I'm actually gonna investigate what my parents have been teaching me my whole life, since no one's encouraging me to like no one's telling me I need to live this way, but I might as well just find out for myself if it's something that I personally want to live, if it's something that I personally feel will benefit me. And of course it was familiar because I grew up with those ideals, those standards, that like level of thinking. But once I started investigating it myself, I gained my own testimony. Yeah. And I knew that it was right for me. And once that happened, that's when things change, right? Yeah. When you're not doing something because someone tells you you need to be doing it, but when you're doing it because you know that you need to be doing it. Yeah. Because you know that it's right for you. And I think it's great to kind of give your kids like habits and a standard and like, okay, let's try to work this way. I wish as members of the church we would be better at starting them young at finding their own way. Yes. And allowing them to make mistakes.
My last podcast, last week, George mentioned something like that, because he's Mormon too. He said that, we have to fail in life. We have to go through adversity. That's the only way we can grow. And he feels like what he said was really powerful. When we protect these kids from life, they're going to struggle more. Yeah. But if we let them fail early and try to figure out who they are and figure out what they want to do and their own self-identity and path in life, they'll be able to grow faster as they hit adulthood. But you can't protect people from life, because they're going to hit life someday. And then when they go into life and then they've been sheltered from all these things that they should know about, then they're more likely to fall in a deeper hole than going into life knowing, it's okay if I make mistakes, I can learn from it and move on. But then when you make a first mistake, they never make a mistake our whole life. That one mistake is like lays upon, it's like the effect is like quadruple than a normal person just making a mistake. Yeah,
actually it's interesting because I actually just shared this in church a couple weeks ago, that when I finally came back to church, I thought I had committed such huge sins that there was no way for me to come fully back to the gospel and come back to, like, that's literally how I felt. My dad was an alcoholic. I learned this as an adult. I did not know this as a child. My dad was a hippie. My dad, like, grew weed in his backyard. Like, he was an alcoholic. My dad was a convicted felon with DUIs. He had a felony DUI because he got like 3 DUIs. By your third one, it becomes a felony. Had no idea about that growing up. My dad was a bishop. My dad was like leader in the church, right? I didn't know that. What kind of impact could my dad have made if he shared those things with us when we were little? Like, oh, my dad, who is this wonderful, like, God-fearing man, made mistakes, like, is a human. That would have taught us a different lesson. Now, obviously, you don't need to share all the nitty-gritty details of all of the bad things that you've done, or, you know, things like that, absolutely. But, like, you do send your kids a message when you don't allow them to see your mistakes. And when you don't let them know that you're human, too. Because this is just human. Like, this is being human. This is not, like... It's not rocket science. Like, everybody makes mistakes. And I think had I known those things growing up, I wouldn't have felt that doom of, like, to be honest, a lot of times growing up, I was afraid to do certain things. Like, I never drank in high school. Like, I was so scared that I would go to hell. And I would, like, there would be no redemption for me if I did that. So instead of making the right choice for the right reason, I was making the right choice sometimes for the wrong reason because I was scared. I was afraid of the consequence or afraid of the doom that would come with it. But, like, that's not right either, right? You need to do the right things for the right reasons. And that's what makes you a good person is when your intent is aligned with, like, you know, like your morals and what you know is right. Like, you have to align those things together. And I never felt that growing up. I just did what I was supposed to because I was scared I would, like, get punished for it or whatever. And that's why I rebelled, because I was like, oh, I'm just gonna live my life and do whatever I want. Had I known that, oh, there was a way for me to come back, I probably would have come back sooner even. But I was just like, oh, I messed up too much. And but it was definitely a good learning experience and has helped shape me in knowing how I want to raise my kids. And I think that that's the important thing. Like, you can be raised one way and you don't have to repeat those cycles. And I think from doing personal development, from, like, learning about all these things, it's really helped me to identify what areas of my life that I'm like, oh, these are good things that my parents taught me, I'm going to keep these, but these over here, like, we're going to throw those in the garbage, and we're not going to teach our kids that same way. And then here's some other things that were, like, kind of good, but let's, like, tweak them and make them a little bit better so that our kids can have a better understanding. And that's very hard to do when it's been done this way for so long. But I think it's important to be able to have that, that change and growth.
No, because I feel like, you know, just listening to what you shared about your dad, if he would have shared those flaws that he went through, I think that would have changed a lot. And I feel like a lot of the things you went through in college is originates because he never, because you know when you make a mistake and you feel guilty for making mistakes, then you find different ways to cover it up. Instead of just learning from the mistake and moving on. That's what you should be doing. And if we learn that as a child, as a young child, you know, if your dads were like, you know, I made flaws in my life, but I learned from it, and now I'm a pastor, and now I'm doing better. You know, we have to make mistakes. If I didn't make those mistakes, I wouldn't be who I am today. That would have given you a better definition of what making mistakes is. But if you don't know the definition of mistakes, which is like, okay. No,
that's absolutely true. And
what do we do now? You know, I'll do this. I'm sorry, drinking. I'm sorry, because you just feel like you try to cover up that mistake instead of embracing it. You know what? It's part of who I am. But I can move forward from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you.
Okay. All right. So I feel like that going through that process of what you went through in college, let's take a break.
Okay.
All right, so so you were sharing the things that you went through in college, all the things you were dealing with and trying to overcome. Do you feel like that was like the precursor to motivate you to make the decision of being a life coach that you are today?
Yeah, actually, well, I think a lot of the things in my life, I mean, I was always super into fitness and health, even though I wasn't great at it or like wasn't perfect at it. It always did interest me, I think, growing up. And so I think also in my family, actually growing up, I saw people who were old and they just were always sick. So for me, when I saw that, I was like, oh, I never want to live to be old. Like, this old life looks miserable.
Yeah.
It looks really sad. And like, old people are all hunched over and in wheelchairs, and like, I don't want that life.
Yeah.
So I think seeing a lot of that growing up, and I was around a lot of like sick people growing up. We have people in our family who have like cancer. My dad had diabetes.
Yep.
My dad had heart problems. My mom has like thyroid issues. Like, there's just like tons of different problems that I've seen like all throughout my life in my own family and just in the people around me, that I just didn't want that life for myself. But I didn't make that connection that I could have control to change those things, which is kind of interesting because we do actually all have the power to change those things.
Yeah.
Like, all of those different issues are lifestyle related. They're related to like the food you eat, the way you exercise or the lack of exercise, just like the way you take care of your body. And unfortunately, the way our society is that if you're sick, you take a pill.
Yeah.
But you don't take care of the problem.
Yeah.
So like, you mask the
real problem.
You mask the symptom, which like, you take care of the symptom, but you don't actually like get to the root of the problem.
It's like putting a Band-Aid.
Yeah, which is literally what I did my whole young adult life.
Yeah.
Like, I ignored my problems and I hid them and just dealt with the symptoms. Like, oh, I'm sad about this, so I'm gonna eat. I'm sad about this, I'm gonna drink.
Yeah.
I am, like, this is a problem in my life. I don't know how to handle this. Okay, I'm gonna do this instead. And I think that that's what happens for most people, like, with their health.
That's everybody.
That's everybody, right?
Everybody goes through that.
Yeah. So, what's interesting, this actually like really perfectly transitions into my adventure into veganism. So my dad passed away in 2016. He had a stroke. He had a major stroke. Now, the stroke that he had was a side effect of some of the medications that he was taking.
Oh, wow.
And so he always, my dad growing up, he always had this medicine cabinet. And like, normally people have it in their bathroom and it's like 2 little shelves. Like, my dad had like a cabinet in our pantry that you like open out and pull out, and it's just like all medication. Okay. Now, my dad didn't take all of those medications every day, but some of them he was taking regularly.
So he had a little pharmacy up there.
He definitely had a pharmacy. Definitely had a pharmacy. So when something was wrong, he would go to our family doctor. Our family doctor would prescribe him something to take care of whatever, And my dad had a heart condition like his whole life.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a little bit out of his control, but my dad didn't exercise regularly. He did not eat vegetables. We ate meat. We are meat and potato family. Okay, so I think Tongans are very meat and potato. Like love eating steak and like a baked, like that was like our food, and then like a little maybe like a little vegetable, and if we had vegetables, it was like canned vegetables. It wasn't like fresh. In fact, I saw like fresh green beans for the first time when I was like an adult, and I was like, what are those? And then I'm like, oh, I've been eating the ones in the can that are all like dark green and like not delicious looking, I didn't know what like fresh vegetables and things were, because we ate a lot of like processed foods and like junk food. So when I my friend, he's a bodybuilder, Tongan as well. He just like posted on social media that he was becoming vegan, and he watched this documentary, What the Health, and he just said,
I think I heard about it.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
it's such a good documentary. Like, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's like my favorite documentary, because as I was watching, and he was like, everyone needs to watch this. So that weekend, I was like, all right, let me see what this is about. If a Tongan can give up meat,
give up meat,
then there must be something to this.
Yeah.
So I watched the documentary, and it talks all about pharmaceutical companies, like the dairy industry, the meat industry, and just like how all of these things are literally made to make us even more sick, so we need to depend even more on these things.
Pharmaceutical companies.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And that triggered for me, because I was like, yeah, that's my household.
Yeah.
That's, this was in 2017, so my dad had just passed away a year before this.
Yep.
And it rang true for me. I was like, yeah, my dad would still be here if he changed his diet, if he changed his lifestyle, if he got out and started moving more. No, my dad, he like went to work, worked in an office, came home, watched TV, ate dinner, and then slept. Like, he didn't go out and exercise. My dad didn't have like a regular exercise routine. My dad had a drawer. Even though he had type 2 diabetes, he had a candy drawer next to his bed where he would eat candy like every night. In fact, like, occasionally I'd go into my mom's room and I would just see like wrappers like on the side of his bed, and I'm just like, oh my gosh,
diabetes,
Yeah, and I'm like, really, you have diabetes? Like, why are you doing this? Like, this is crazy. And that's just like, that was normal life for him, and that's actually normal life for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, that's just normal. Like, same with me. Like, oh, growing up, you're gonna be old, you're gonna be sick. We are conditioned to think that way. Like, when you're older, you're just going to be sick, and you're just going to need to go to the doctor all the time and take medicine. And when you're sick, you're going to get diabetes.
Yeah.
It runs in the family.
Yeah.
Guess what? It doesn't run in the family.
Yeah.
Bad habits run in the family.
Yeah.
So cancer doesn't run in the family. Stroke doesn't run in the family. Like, these aren't hereditary things. These are lifestyle related.
Yeah.
And of course, your genetics do make you a little bit more prone to something.
Yeah, you can be more prone to it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's 100%.
Doesn't mean that that's going to happen
it's
to
gonna
you.
happen.
You can come from a family where everyone
is diabetic, but
you can break the chain by being proactive. And so when I saw that documentary, I was like, okay, I need to do this. I definitely need to do this, because I saw long term, and I think that like opened up my mind to like, you could live a long, healthy life and not have a stroke like your dad.
Yeah.
And you can live a long, healthy life and not end up with type 2 diabetes. And you can live a long, healthy life and not have cancer like your uncles. And, like, you can just like live a
normal life.
A normal, healthy life. But see, healthy isn't normal to Americans.
Yeah.
Healthy is not normal. Sick is normal to Americans.
Especially when you're older.
Especially when you're older. And so we get that stuck in our head that, oh, well, we just accept it.
Yeah.
Because we're just like, that's what we see, and that's what we know.
I'm just live my best life to 30, 35, and then 40, it is what it is.
And even the same thing, people always say, oh, I said the same thing. Once I turned 30, I was like, oh,
my good years is behind me.
My back is hurting all the time. Oh, I just feel like, oh, my metabolism has slowed down. Like, these are just like lies that we tell ourselves. Like, oh, it's not because of anything I'm doing. It's because I turned 30.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel this way because I'm 40 now.
Yeah.
No, like,
we start justifying it.
Yeah, we're just justifying. We're telling ourselves like all these different excuses. Like, oh, I feel this way because this is like normal.
Yeah.
And it's not. Like, it's not normal. And I think making that change for myself helped me see that I was actually in more control of my life than I realized. I was more in control of my health than I realized. Mm-hmm. So that was June or July of 2017 that I watched that. Mm-hmm. And then for the next few months, even though I knew I needed to give up meat and cheese and dairy and everything, it was still hard because you have, I don't know, like family, and you have just like how you grew up and how you eat.
You've been living your life a certain way for years.
Totally.
You can't just unlearn those things overnight.
Absolutely.
Those habits overnight.
Absolutely. And some people do. Some people learn about like this particular lifestyle and they're just like, okay, I'm gonna do it overnight. Like,
yeah, 1 out of 1,000.
Like, more power to you. That was not my experience.
Yeah.
So for me, what I started doing was like Monday through Friday, I started being like really strict with it. Yeah. Like I would meal prep and I would do everything and I like practice, because to change your lifestyle, you really need to practice.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to happen overnight. Like this is why everyone fails when they do a diet. And this doesn't even have to be for like veganism, but like for diets in general, like it shouldn't be about a diet, it should be about a lifestyle, right? So when people are like, oh, I want to lose weight, they turn to the most extreme thing that like, and then they try to do it all at once, and then they fail because they're just like, gotta be perfect at it, and it's not sustainable. And for me, it was not sustainable for me to just switch everything overnight. So I did Monday through Friday, then on the weekends, I'd go to weddings, events, whatever, church, like there's food everywhere, and I would allow myself to have some meat and some cheese and stuff like once a week, rather than like forcing myself to live this extreme way all at once and fail at it. And
you have to start small.
Yeah, definitely.
Start somewhere.
Yeah, and some people start doing it like 1 day a week, or 2 days a week, or whatever. Like do what you can. But for me, it was 5 days a week, and then the weekend I kind of took off. And then after a few months of doing that, I just decided okay, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And then January 2018, I said, no more. I'm for sure giving up this lifestyle of no meat, no cheese. Like I'm not going to eat any animal products anymore. And I made the switch. And within a month, this like fog lifted, and a fog that I didn't even know was there. And I was like so lethargic before that. It's almost like I actually felt alive. And what's crazy is that I didn't know that I felt dead before. Until I made the switch. And I think that happens to a lot of people. Like you're just going in this like, you're just going down this path slowly until you're like 70 years old and you're like, oh, I'm diabetic and I have gout and I need to have my hand amputated now, or you have a stroke and then you just like die a premature death, you know, and like but you like slowly made your way there. But for me, within a month, I got out of that and realized that I was literally living half dead for most of my life. And I had different issues. I had hypothyroidism, so that's like a hormonal imbalance where you feel very fatigued, low energy, hard to lose weight. There's like lots of different, there's like, I like Googled it, there's like 16 symptoms. I had like 15 out of 16 of them. I was like, oh, okay, that's not fun. I also had rheumatoid arthritis, so that's like where you have like inflammation in your joints and everything. It all cleared up in the first month. Haven't felt any of that for the last 2.5 years.
Wow.
So it's been really awesome, and life has just been improving and moving forward since then. But I think it took a lot to just kind of like break through of like that mindset of like, okay, this is the way I was raised, but I don't want my life to end that way. So let's go on this path. And I think that's hard for people. So to answer your original question, that is what motivated and inspired me to start coaching other people, is because I felt the change for myself. And so I wanted other people to be able to feel that as well, and also to have that support and that guidance as they're making those changes, because it's like not easy to just change your lifestyle. Some people are able to do it relatively easily on their own because they're like really motivated and they're really committed.
I don't think everybody does it really easy. It may look easy from but it's still hard.
I think you're right. Yeah. But I think for me, I love being able to help other people to make that change, because I know, like, early on in my journey, I started following other people on social media and started like reaching out to other vegans, like, okay, how started following different people. And I think that that's important too. Like, if you notice and recognize that you want to make a change, like, start joining yourself up with other people who are doing what you want to do.
They're aligned with your goals. And
yes. So that and those people more than likely are not in your family.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sometimes a hard thing for us, that at some point you kind of need to separate yourself a little bit from the direction that your family's going. I mean, obviously you still love your family, you're still like part of your family, you still go to family events and still
it's not even personal.
Yeah.
It's just common sense. Like, you can't learn something from somebody that's never done it before.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So yeah, I think for me that was like the hardest thing was like at the beginning going home to LA and like having a meal with them was like really hard because they expect you, like, we always ate like this.
Did you get like a lot of criticism?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Not just from my family, but like the Tongan community.
Yeah.
Of course. You need meat.
Yeah.
You need meat or you're gonna die.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, here I am, thriving. 2.5 years later, still alive. And I'm telling you, that criticism, it like never stops.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like this past week even, I had someone tell me that I eat grass and that I need meat or I'm gonna die. And I'm like, you are 2.5 years too late, because I've been doing this for 2.5 years and I am thriving. I'm very much alive and I'm the most muscular I've ever been in my entire life. I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my entire life. I have the most energy, and I'm 37, gonna be 40 in 3 years, and don't feel like I'm a slug like I did when I was 30. So
I know people that are 37, but they look like they're 60.
Absolutely. And there's people who pass away when they're like in their 50s, and everyone's like, oh, it's so sad. And I'm like, that's beyond sad. That is a tragedy.
Yeah,
like,
it's 50.
People are not supposed to die when they're 50 years old, but that's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal. It's normal. Like, I see it. I see it in the Tongan community. Someone passed away when they're like in their mid 50s, and people are just like, oh, it's sad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's
bad.
That's really bad. Like, that is not supposed to be happening.
It's funny you brought that up here. It's like, I just thought about some people that passed away the last couple of years. You know, some of them were in their 50s, 40s. I had one guy, he passed away from a heart attack. He was like 34.
Oh my gosh.
And everybody was just like, well, you know, that was like, no, it's normal.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, that's not a good thing. At 34 years old, that's too young to have. He had a heart attack at 34.
Yeah.
How do you have a heart attack at 34?
And at 34, you're only maybe like, you could live to be 100. So
Yeah.
at 34, you're really only
it's one-third of your
done
life.
with your life. Like,
you know, for me, it's like, you know, for me, like, if you know, if somebody died in my family, you know, my personal family, and I saw that they died like 30, 34, I would ask questions. For me, I would like, you know, why did he die so young? You know, and then try to figure out what the problem was. But nobody asks questions. When somebody dies at 34, 50, like, how come he died so young? You know, well, maybe he was overweight. I mean, why is he overweight? Maybe he ate too much. You know, maybe that's something we should change, so that way people, or you know, everybody else doesn't fall on the same path that he did. But it's kind of sad when you see that.
Yeah, I think the hard thing for me when my dad passed is that he was 71. My dad retired when he was 70.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, okay, he worked his whole life. My dad worked from the time he was 8 years old. His dad passed away when he was 2, so, and his mom was always working. So he's the youngest, so he kind of raised himself. And, you know, he had, if he wanted extra money, if he wanted money for books or the thing, like even to buy his own clothes, like he had to buy his own clothes, you know, so he had to work. He was working from 8 years old until 70 years old. Yeah. And then he was like, yes, you know, him and my mom had this like sweet retirement plan. Yeah. And a year later he passes away. Yeah. So what was that all for? Yeah. You know, like, you're working your whole life and then wanting to enjoy it later on, but like, you don't have the health to do it. Yeah, you don't have the health to do it. And if you're not investing in those things now. Early, yeah. Yeah, like, you have to be investing in your health now in your 20s, 30s, as soon 40s. As you can. Like, wherever you're at, start today to invest into your health so that when you're 80 or 90, you actually can be like...
Oh, when you retire.
Alive.
Yeah.
You know? Like, not dead, but like alive and
Yeah.
enjoying life and thriving. Yeah. And I think it's hard for people because we don't see that very often. Like, look at our elders. Our elders are bedridden.
Yeah,
they're
bedridden,
sick.
nursing home.
They're nursing home, or they're like in wheelchairs, and like that's not normal.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be our generation.
Yeah.
But we're gonna be like still thriving in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
I think I was watching a video the other day and it said it was did you follow Gary Vee?
Mm-hmm. I love Gary Vee.
I love him.
Straight shooter. Like straight shooter.
Man, I love him.
You want the truth, he'll give it to you.
Right? No BS, right?
Yeah.
He was telling people, he was telling all the younger people, you guys need to start working on your dreams and your goals and whatever you want to do for your life, because we're gonna live to 100. That's gonna be our normal age for us. So think about it. If you're in your 20s, 30s right now, you got 70 years to live. Are you really going to like struggle and suffer the next 70 years? Or are you gonna start working now so that way you can have a good quality of life in your 70 next? And that, for me, I always think about that. Like whenever I get lazy. Whenever I get
Same here.
When I get
Same
lazy,
here.
it's tough. I always tell myself, you know what, I gotta do it now because I just don't want to be like my parents. I just don't want to be like in my 60s, 70s and just bedridden. I can't do anything because I've seen that with my own family. Like I want to be thriving.
Yeah.
Able to do what I want to do. Get up. I don't need somebody to change my underwear.
Yeah. But even like when you're young and you don't have as many responsibilities, it's easier. Like, do you think it's gonna be easier to work out when my baby comes? No. Yeah. Like that's why. Right now, through my pregnancy, I'm working out every day, like trying to really focus on my health because it's never gonna get easier in the future. It's only gonna get harder. Yeah. So, that's something that I like really stress and emphasize. Like, create the habits. Like, look forward. Like, how do you want to be in the future? Like, if you and it's small changes too. You don't have to do like a dramatic thing. Like, you want to be healthier. Are you eating 0 vegetables per day? Good. Start eating 1. 1 serving of a vegetable every day. Then build off of that.
I think the problem is like when people think healthy, their definition of healthy is IG model.
Yeah. Or they eat grass and these like weird funky foods.
Like,
they're like, I've never
when I talk to like my younger nieces and cousins, they're like, when they're like, you should work out. Well, I can't get to that body. You don't have to look like a model to be healthy.
Yeah.
You can just be like, you can just look how you look right now, but just lose a couple pounds, just be more healthier. But you don't have to look like those people you see on social media. I think social media makes it harder.
It does make it harder.
Because they feel like.
Well, I think just it's always been this way. Yeah. Even before social media, diet culture is like huge. Yeah. Like that is huge. Like you have to. It's everywhere. It's in all kinds of media. You see it in television shows. You see it everywhere. Like. This is the standard, this is what you're supposed to look like, but it's not accurate. Like, health actually doesn't have anything to do with what you look like. Yeah. It has to do with, like, your habits. Yeah, and what goes into your body. Yeah, and I always say, like, there's a book, The 5 a.m. Club, by Robin Sharma. I don't know if you've ever read it. I've heard of Robin Sharma, but I've never read the book. Such a good book. Yeah. Like, he talks about there's, like, 4 pillars of health. And you need to focus on all 4 of these pillars. You need to like dedicate time for each one of these pillars every day. And he likes to do it in like a morning routine. But he talks about your health set. So like you first start with like physical exercise, like, and you could do that in like 20 minutes. Like he's not saying like you gotta work out for 10 hours every day, like 20 minutes, like fast-paced walking or like running or whatever, 20 minutes. And then your mindset, super important, like doing personal development, like reading, like he basically says like you should be reading from a personal development book every day to help work on your mindset, because that's really like where things are going to change. And he says your heart set, which is like your emotional health, like goes along with like meditating, like things like that, how you're managing your emotions, because we're all going to feel anger, we're all going to feel stress, we're all going to feel those things, but like what you do with those things, those are where the unhealthy behaviors come from. So like developing better habits around those things, and then your soul set, like your spirit, your spiritual health. And I'm like, dude, for real, like those are the 4 things you really need to work on every day to live a healthy life. And most of us are doing like none of those things.
Yeah.
Like,
or we're just doing one of them and neglecting the other.
Yeah.
And then we're still suffering.
Yeah, still suffering because if you and he says like you can do this like in an hour every morning. Like he just breaks it down like 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, and I'm like, bruh, if everybody just did an hour every day of like focusing on changing those little habits about themselves, like it'll go long term. Like.
Because I feel like all the problems we go through originates from those 4 things.
Yeah.
Everything we go through. Either we're suffering emotionally,
and they're all connected.
Either we're suffering physically, we're suffering spiritually, or we're suffering was it mentally?
Yeah.
It's out of those 4 things.
Yeah. And what's crazy is if you're suffering physically,
it affects your mental health.
It'll affect your mental health. Emotional health. Like how many people are physically sick in the hospital right now and they're depressed?
Yeah.
They weren't depressed before they were physically sick in the hospital. Yeah. So they all go hand in hand. And then also when you're taking care of your spiritual health, like you're more motivated to work out.
Yeah.
You're more motivated to take care of your health. Like if all of these things and they all work together. Yeah. So if you're focusing on all 4, like you're really gonna thrive.
I know.
And it takes work.
And of course,
and it's not easy.
You have to wake up.
Good luck.
I mean, you know Tony Robbins, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like I remember I was watching one of his seminars, and he said, somebody asked him, I'm trying to change my life. What's the first thing I should do? And he was like, you know what? I think anybody that's trying to change their life and you have no idea what you want to do, I think the first thing you should start with is your body, because if you can change your body, then you change everything. Yeah. And then he was like, start with the.
Okay.
All right, so I know we were talking about health. And we were talking about you were talking about being a vegan, and I do want to keep covering that topic because I feel like a lot of people need, especially Polynesians, they need to hear more about this vegan thing they call. That I know it's foreign. It's for a lot of people. So the question I'm going to ask you is, what are the fallacies or lies of people that's taught out there about vegans? Because I know a lot of us, even myself, when I was when I listened to the vegan lifestyle, and I shared it earlier, I did it for 3 months.
Yeah.
And the reason why I did it was I just wanted to find out myself, because health is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
But I remember always hearing this these false those false lies about vegans. If you become a vegan, you're gonna be weaker. You're gonna lose muscle mass. And these are things that maybe stop somebody from actually trying. So for you, what are the things that you felt like? Well, what are the things that you heard about being a vegan, and then of course you started being a vegan, you found out, oh, this is not true.
Yeah. So what's really interesting is that my perception of vegan before I was vegan was like
positive.
Like they eat grass pretty much. They're like crunchy granola, hippie type people, and I'm like, okay, they're like weird. Yeah. Like a lot of my visions of what a vegan was like people who stood outside and were like protesting for animal rights, and I was like, I just cannot envision myself doing that.
Like hardcore.
Yeah, like I really was like thinking of like one vision, and I couldn't see myself in that mold. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't see myself as that person. And then of course I actually had when I served a mission, I had a companion who was vegan, and she was like very tall and lanky and lean, and like she kind of looked malnourished sometimes, because maybe she was, because we were like eating at members' houses
and walking
like,
every day.
And like there wasn't enough like food for her to eat given what we were given to eat, But
you made it. Oh, she's a vegan. That's why she's like that.
Yeah, which is funny because now I've learned that is just not true. Yeah. Like you can literally make every single food that you like, but the vegan version of it. And I eat so good, actually. Yeah. I've lost weight. So when I first started, I lost 40 pounds. Wow. Just like fell off of me. But the reason why it fell off, and not everybody has that same experience, because obviously you can overeat vegan foods. Yeah. Clearly, there's lots of vegan junk food. Fun fact, Oreos are vegan. So you can definitely have that. There are foods out there.
Vegan Oreos?
No. Oreos, like regular Oreos, are vegan.
Oh, for real?
They're accidentally vegan.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So there's a lot of foods out there that are already vegan that like don't, like you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. And then also it kind of forced me to like read labels and also see that there's like just hidden foods that aren't even necessary inside certain foods that we eat. You're like, why does this have milk in it? Like, it doesn't need to have milk in it. And like, you just start seeing different things like, as you read labels. So I think like those are my biggest things. Like, I thought I would be eating salads all the time, but like, that's not true. Like, yes, I have a salad with my dinner, but the salad is my like side dish, not the main dish. And I think that people don't realize that you actually don't, like, one, meat is not the only way to get protein. And actually the way your meat gets protein, like cows, pigs, they eat plants. That's where they get their protein from. So you're basically just like cutting out that middleman. Like, you don't need the cow because you can get the plants and get the nutrients and get the protein that you need from those things. So I think the big thing is like protein. Oh, you're going to be protein deficient. You're going to be weak. You can't build muscle. But like, I eat anywhere from 120 to 150 grams of protein every day. Easily. Very easily. And my husband, same. Like, he can pack away.
Your husband's pretty buff.
He is pretty buff. Yeah, so really ultimately we've just learned how to like, find foods that are high in protein, that are nourishing and filling and can keep you full, and you don't have to be weak as a vegan.
So can you talk about like the first 30 days of being a vegan, and the first things that you noticed about yourself that was apparent, as far as like the feelings, the energy that you felt, that you never felt before? Can you talk about that? Yeah.
So actually, I mentioned a little of this before, but like, within like the first couple weeks, I just had this like boost of energy. Like, and I was still eating a lot of food. Like, I didn't feel like I was hungry. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing.
That's another one they talk about. If you go vegan, you'll be hungry.
Yeah, you're not. You're not. Actually, what ends up happening when you eat meat, and this is what I think is funny. People are like, you need meat to feel alive and energized.
To feel
I was like, really? But how do you really feel after that big meaty meal? You sit there and you're like, I'm in a coma. I don't feel good. I need a nap.
I need to go sleep.
If you need a nap after you eat, you're eating the wrong foods, because food really is fuel for our bodies, and it should be giving you energy to like go out and do the things that you need to do. And now I get it. Like, in my family, food is a celebration. We reward ourselves with food. Like, oh, you did a great job, let's go get ice cream. Oh, you did a great job, let's go get pizza. In Tongan culture, same. Like, we celebrate with food. We got a big old pig everywhere. You know, like, food is like, that's, I mean, there are like social aspects of eating and food like that are totally understandable, but like, when you eat those things, like, you don't normally feel good. You actually feel gross. And so when you remove that and you just start eating food to fuel your body, you really do feel more alive. And for me, I used to lift weights. I used to lift like really heavy. I used to train with, I actually used to train over here in San Bruno with someone who was training football players, like college football players. So I used to just lift super heavy every day. This was like back in 2016. Every day, I was so sore. And in my head, I was like, oh, it's just because I'm lifting heavy. Like, this is normal. Like, I'm supposed to feel this body breakdown. Like, I could barely get up, you know? I'm like, yeah, that's normal. But when I became vegan, I also started bodybuilding at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So those, like, my January 1st, 2018, I was like, I'm going to be vegan. I'm going to be a bodybuilder. Like, I'm going to compete. I'm going to do something, you know, like, I wanted to be a competitive bodybuilder. And so I was like, yeah, this is so outside. And, like, hello, the person who was saying that was obese. And didn't look the part at all. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And so when I that first month, as I was lifting, I noticed that difference. Like, oh, I'm not like sore all the time. And then I was like, well, maybe I'm not lifting heavy enough, or like maybe I'm just like not working out enough. Then I just realized that everything, like the way I was eating before, was negatively impacting my workouts. It was negatively impacting my recovery time.
Your body.
Yeah, like everything. Like I was just sore all the time, or I just like didn't feel good internally. The other thing, I used to have stomach issues, like off and on for a long time. And even like, I was vegetarian for a little while, like off and on through like my young adult years. But I always noticed that when I ate meat, my stomach hurt after I ate it. And same with cheese. Like our body doesn't really digest
cheese very well.
It's like most of us are lactose intolerant, but we're like still eating cheese. I also used to have like bad skin because of it. I always had like acne and things like that. So like my skin cleared up. My husband's skin really cleared up. Like the first like couple months he was vegan, like our wedding pictures, you see like tons of like pimples all over his face, even like in the airbrushed photos. But like now his skin is like so clear. And I think it's just from like staying hydrated, and you're like getting more water from like your fruits and veggies that you're eating, and like you're not carrying this extra weight. I also was able to like run faster even though I don't train for running. Like if ever I run, I'm like, oh, I just feel lighter. Like this feels amazing. Like I feel lighter, but I feel stronger, and I just don't feel sick all the time. So yeah, I could go like on for like an hour. The things that I've benefited from this lifestyle.
No, because I'm glad you shared that, because like I feel like, you know, I think a lot of people, it just comes to misinformation. We don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, if you don't know, then you're always going to take the extreme.
Totally.
The negative extreme of something, and make that your definition of what that is.
Yeah. I think what's also cool now is that veganism is becoming more popular.
Yeah.
So there's more companies out there that are creating like food products for us, so that like you can get fake meat, like you can get sausages that are like high in protein and lower in fat than a regular sausage, and you can get like hamburgers. There's all kinds of vegan hamburgers that you can get, and like you even have fast food options. Like you can go to different places and they have these different vegan options there. Like Burger King has an Impossible Burger, and Carl's Jr. has a Beyond Burger.
Yeah, it's a vegan burger. Right?
Yeah, it's just a vegan burger. So it's like my husband and I have just like found ways to like use different like replacements to help us feel connected to those foods we used to eat before. Like, oh, I feel like a hot dog because I grew up eating hot dogs all the time, and you're like,
hot dogs are so terrible
like
for you.
Hot dogs and mac and cheese. But when you have like, you can have vegan mac and cheese, and it's like so much better for your body, and you don't feel like you're like, you eat and you don't feel like you want to fall asleep, and you actually feel alive and energized. So yeah, those are like the biggest things, is like the energy levels for sure. Like everyone should try it, but try it the right way.
Yeah.
Don't just try to eat vegetables. Yeah.
I think I was watching, I think, Joe Rogan on his podcast, and he did mention something like that, like, you know, a lot of people feel like that being vegan will make you weak, but then if you look at animals, you know, the biggest animals in the like elephants, giraffes, all these
gorillas.
Gorillas.
The strong gorilla.
You know, they're the strongest animals, you know, in mankind. Like they're all plant based.
Yep.
You know, so that makes, so if they can get big, there's no reason why we can't.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, we're the only people that eat and drink the milk of other. No animal does it.
Oh yeah, we are the only people who drink the milk of other animals.
Yeah, no other animals do that.
And we're the only animals that drink milk past being a baby.
Yeah.
Like, why do we do that? That's weird.
Somebody came up with it.
Yeah.
I know. When I heard that, I was like, oh wow, that's true. I started thinking about it. I was like, man, that's true.
Yeah. But it's just like, these are things. It's almost like we can't help it though, because this is what has been marketed to us. This is what has been put in front of us, and so we're really just like victims.
We've been programmed to be like this.
Yeah. It's just like, here, you need to.
It's like a Matrix.
Yeah, it is. And I think for me, like, I think the biggest part of all of this is that there's normally like this one way that is like the norm, like this is what's widely accepted and widely accepted, like everyone does this thing, but just because everybody does something doesn't mean it's the best way
or the right way
or the best way for you as an individual. And I think I have found that in religion, I have found that in my personal life, culturally, like you're just like in everything it's like, okay, well, this is what everyone is doing, this is what everyone expects of me, but I know that I feel so good doing this. So I think that helps strengthen me in being the lone wolf over here and doing it, because I know for myself that this is what works best for me. And you're never going to know that until you try it. So it's like, just because everyone's doing something doesn't mean it's the best way. So challenge those things, and maybe if you learn something new and you learn some new information, or maybe you like listen to this and you're like, wait, veganism? Okay, maybe I should try that, you know? Like, do it, like try it, look into it, research it, and then maybe even try it for like a couple weeks, or like commit to it for like, for you did it for 3 months. Like 3 months is a good time to feel a difference. For me, I say 30 days minimum. Like try it for 30 days straight, and you'll feel the difference, and you'll go, oh, okay, I can keep going on this path, you know, like, because it does make a difference.
Yeah, like I said, like, just try it. I think that's the key. Just try. You gotta try the new things, because you can't repeat the same thing over and over.
For sure.
And that's why I started at 3. That's why I started for 3 months. Like I just wanted to try, because I just tried to find if maybe if it was a better way, it would work for me. It would, but at least I didn't want to say like, at least I didn't try it.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, that's good. All right, so right now you are a life coach as of right now, right?
Well, I call myself like a health and fitness coach.
Health and fitness coach?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, life coaching kind of falls in there.
Yeah.
I'm more like, I guess I coach people on their lifestyle when it comes to like health and fitness.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how's that experience for you?
I love it.
Yep.
I absolutely love it. It's one of those things that I started doing because I knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I knew I wanted to help other people, but I didn't want to work outside my household. And so I started doing online coaching, because I realized that was a way that I could do both, that I could make an income for my family and help people and like be there for my family too, be there for my kids and raise my kids. And so that's why I started my little business, because I just felt like long term that was something that I wanted to continue doing. It also helps me because when you are preaching these things and you're teaching these things and you're helping other people, it holds you accountable to the things that you know are true as well. So that is something that's really helped me on my journey. I think I wouldn't be as far along in my health and fitness journey if I didn't start coaching others, which is actually kind of interesting, because I heard someone say the other day, they were talking about like the AA 12-step program for like Alcoholics Anonymous, and they said like one of the last steps is to like help somebody else. It's like to be a sponsor for someone else. Like you have a sponsor and then you become a sponsor for someone else. And I can't remember the statistics, I'm like so bad with numbers, but they said something like, it was a really high percentage. It was like 95% of the people who did the like 12, like the last step and helped other people, like they stayed on the journey. And like they stayed sober, and like it was something like ridiculously high of the people who fell off who never made it to the 12th step. And so I was like, oh, that's like so interesting. It's the same for health and fitness coaching or whatever, any kind of coaching. Like if you're helping to teach somebody else to do something, it just helps you become stronger.
I feel like when you help somebody else and they're looking up to you, you have this natural responsibility that I have to live my life for this person. So I think that's why that 12th step is really important.
And I mean, it's health and fitness, so it's not
it doesn't matter.
It's not like you have to like feel like perfect in what you're doing. I always try to keep it real with my followers and my clients and everything. Like, hi, I'm human too.
It just makes you don't fall off completely.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
even though you have those days, but you know what, I still gotta get back on it.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
All right. So I want to talk about reframing your mindset. All right. So I know, who you are today and what you're doing now, and especially everything you share, that's completely opposite of the girl you told me, right?
Yeah.
All right. And of course, that's just natural whenever you transform your life and then you grow into a different person. So I do want to talk about like the different things that I think we talked about earlier. Like, what are the things earlier, the beliefs or things that you were taught? Because I think we talked about it. Like, the reason why people live a certain way, certain path, because we all programmed the society, or your parents, or your culture, environment, right?
Yeah.
So, what are the things that you when you grew up? What were the beliefs or the things that you saw that you felt like that wasn't leading into the journey for yourself? Then you have to reframe your mindset. You have to, because I'm sure when you reframe your mindset, you have to unlearn a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of old beliefs, old things that you felt like that was true, but then you realize, oh, that's not really true. I can do this.
I think a lot of us can recognize that we don't really like the direction that something is going. I hear this all the time with health and fitness. People will tell me, oh, I don't like the way I'm eating like this, or I'm doing like this. Like, they know. But I think that the thing that holds people back and has held me back for so long is just like fear.
Yeah.
It's just fear.
Yeah.
Like, what would my life look like if I was different from everyone?
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes. Yeah. I think that's a hard path. It's hard to walk a path alone. It's hard. It's hard to be at a Tongan wedding and sitting at the table and pull food out of your bag because there's nothing there for you to eat. Yeah. And I've been that person. Yeah. Like, I've been there. Like, I knew going into it, like, there's gonna be nothing for me to eat, and it's hard. It's hard to like go through those things and like face those things. But I think something for me has just been like, I feed my mindset every day by listening to podcasts, personal development. Like, I am feeding my mind constantly to help strengthen me internally,
empower yourself,
so that I can do it. Okay. Yeah, because I honestly think that everybody has the power within them to change. Like, everybody has it. Like, you could be the lone person making that choice. You could be the leader that inspires other people to make that change. Everybody has that in them, but it's about getting in touch with that. And that's going to be different for everybody. Yeah. Like sometimes I'll listen to a podcast and I'm like, this just isn't vibing with me. So I change it and I'll listen to something else, Like, sometimes, like, I can recommend a book to you and you read it and you're like, I don't feel connected to it. And, like, that's fine because our minds are all different. I think it's really just making that conscious effort of working on it and not talking ourselves out of it and just, like, allowing ourselves to move forward. And it's scary. Yeah. It's totally scary, but the only way that you overcome those fears is by doing it. It's not by not doing it. Yeah. It's not by avoiding it. Like, you'll just continue to be afraid and you'll never overcome that. So you have to be willing to get uncomfortable and just put in the work. Yeah. And that's going to look different for everybody because we're all different humans. Yeah. But I think for me, well, this is like a human trait. We want to feel acceptance in whatever circle we're in. Yeah. We want to feel like we're like everybody else. We want to feel like we're part of the group. And we want to feel like you feel that in your family. Yeah. Like, no one wants to be the black sheep, even though they are. Like, nobody wants to feel that way. Everyone wants to feel like they're part of their church congregation. Everybody wants to feel like they're part of their like this friend circle at school. Like, everybody wants to feel involved and included and accepted. But, like, we have to, like, overcome that fear of, like, being different is gonna make you an alien to those things. It might make you a little different from them, but you can find other ways to connect with people in those areas. I had to learn that with food. Like, we just go to family events and we have to find other ways to connect with people outside of what we eat. Yeah. And you have to, like, find other ways to build connections and carry on traditions and things like that that are outside of we're roasting a pig, you know. Like even my husband and I, we had like our wedding, so I became vegan 3 weeks before I met him.
Yeah.
And so he's only known me as a vegan.
Yeah.
And when we got married, we were like, okay, we're gonna raise our family vegan. We're gonna have a vegan wedding, and like, you have family members who are like, we want to roast a pig for you, and you're like, oh no, please don't kill an animal for us. Yeah. Please don't do that. And so we just assign them to bring fruit and assign them to bring other things so that they could like still feel that connection and still feel like they're contributing. And I think that goes back to what we originally talked about, like when you know the why behind something, like why do you have this cultural practice? It's not about the pig. It's about showing up with something and showing that you love this person. Okay, so let's take the pig out of the picture. How can you show up for us and show us how you love us? Bring us fruit. Like, we're vegan, you know, like, bring us something else. Yeah. And I think when we start asking those questions, we start reframing that and like get to that root of like, why are we doing this? Why is this important? Then we can build a greater connection. It won't be as scary to be the different person because you can communicate and teach people like, this is why I do this. Yeah. And yeah, some people still don't understand. Yeah.
Because I feel like when you know your why, then you don't never feel alone.
Yeah. No, right? It's absolutely true.
Because if you're alone but you don't know why, then that makes you even more lonely. But then if you know the reason why you wake up every day, like your purpose in life, that give you direction, that you don't ever feel like you're alone because like you feel like you know where you're going.
Yeah.
But if you're lost and alone, that's different.
That's very true.
But if you're traveling to a path alone, you're driving towards something, I think it's a different feeling than just being on the road somewhere just looking around.
But what's cool is when you are confident and you know your why and you express that to other people, you have an opportunity to
attract people,
to bring people over to that lifestyle.
People want to be with your journey.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, she like knows what she's doing and she's confident about it. And at first, it's hard for people. It is so hard. Like, people don't want to get outside of what they know. I know. I see this with members of the church. Like, they're so set in their ways. Like, I notice it at church too. Like, why are we doing this? We've always done it this way. That will always be a response like 90% of the time. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but like, what is the purpose behind it? And when you question it, it makes people think like, oh, I guess it's all for show because we've only done it this way forever, you know? So like, not being afraid to like challenge things. And like, I think we've been conditioned to think that challenging things is disrespectful, but it's actually not, and it can be done in a very respectful way of like, you know, I don't, like just admitting like, I don't understand why we're doing it this way. Yeah. Can you show me? Yeah. Can you help me understand? And people will be more likely to see that. And that comes when I'm on my lonely path. Like, I don't preach and put down other people who aren't on my path. Aren't on the same path because that never works, right? And you just have to like be okay with what you're doing even though you're alone, and other people will start to see, oh, like the first 6 months I was vegan, every Sunday at church I had someone coming up to me asking me what I was doing, because even though there were those few people who were like, oh, you're getting too skinny, you're gonna wither down into nothing, inside, those people were like, I hate that I'm fat right now. Yeah. I don't want to be skinny. I know. Like, I want to shed some, like, I hate that I can't move and feel alive right now. And I want to change that. And so they see it. It's just that the thing that's holding them back is the fear of stepping off that path of what they know and what is, like, comfortable for them.
And what I do notice as well is, most commonly the questions that you're asking, most of them want to ask the same question, but nobody wants to say it out loud. So they want you to ask it so they can get their answer through you.
It's true.
I don't notice that in church.
Yeah, that is very true.
Let's pause. All right, so I know we just talked about walking your own path, life journey, something you've been doing for quite some time now. So I do want to talk about you and your relationships and getting married, because I know you're married to a toko, to a Tongan. So that's going. I'm pretty sure you're the first in your family to marry a Tongan.
I'm not actually.
Oh no, really?
No, my younger brother and my younger sister are both married to Tongans.
Wow.
I know we're
it's a family.
It's a family affair. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
I introduced my brother and my sister to their spouses.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah. So basically, like in 2009, I had lots of Tongan friends, but in 2009, I decided, you know what, I really want to go to Tonga because I want to understand more about the culture and my friends. And like, the way I was raised, we have a lot of similarities with Tongans because Christian, right?
Yeah.
You have that Christian background,
Yeah.
so we do have a lot of similarities. Sometimes I joke, I'm like, I think my mom is like a Tongan lady, like, she'll be like, hella judgmental, like, did you see what that woman was wearing? I was like, Mom, oh my gosh, like, and I hear the same type of stuff in the Tongan community too, like, I'm like, oh, I think I was raised with very similar, like, some of the good things and some of the bad things my family's close, like, we're very close, so I think having that, like, my husband comes from a family with 9 kids.
Yeah.
There's 4 kids in my family, which to me is big for white American family. But like people always thought, oh my gosh, your family's so huge, because a lot of my friends had like maybe 1 sibling or 2 siblings, But so there are a lot of similarities, but I think for me going to Tonga and seeing and understanding and getting that understanding of like how their culture works there in the islands. It changed my whole perception, my whole world, and like there are things that I see with like my Tongan American friends that maybe they do these different cultural practices and they don't understand why they do them. And when you're back in the islands, you see, like, you get in touch with the true meaning of the traditions and like why they are that way. And I think there were things that I didn't understand about Tongan culture that once I went to Tonga, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so beautiful. Like that is so beautiful how they'll just like drop everything and like do anything for you just to like help you or feed you, or they'll like sacrifice anything for you, and like that's not the American way, And my family is a little bit different from the typical American way in that we do help each other out in those ways. But like my other white American friends, like they don't understand that at all. And I think I never really felt that connection. Like, for example, going to dinner with your friends, like one person picks up the bill. But like with my Palangi friends, they're like, okay, my part is $250, and I'm like, my family's not like that, and my little friend circle wasn't like that. But when I go with like other people and they do that, it's like so weird for me. So I think being with Tongans just kind of felt more like familiar. And I mean, obviously we have differences. Like my husband and I do have differences, and like I have different way of thinking. Like with like. There's things that I agree with and I don't agree with, like I agree with and that I don't agree with. Like I have that in my own culture and with Tongan culture. But yeah, so I've always been like fascinated with Tongan culture, and I think in 2009 I just knew like I'm gonna marry a Tongan. So
how did you did you grow up around Tongans in America? Like how did you meet?
So
Tongans?
there was always like a family or two like in our ward at church.
So you go to Penn State.
Well, no. Like when I was, now I go to a Tongan ward, but like when I was younger, like I knew Tongans growing up, and then when I was in college,
because you went to.
Oh my gosh! But let me tell you, going from. Where I live in LA, and even like the high school I went to, very mixed. Like we had
there were Tongans there too.
There were Tongans, black, white. Like our particular school was very mixed, and so in my head, like I never saw like a big, like I never saw like the kind of racism that you see in like a white neighborhood, like an all white neighborhood. Like I don't see that, you know. And when I went to Utah, I just saw like a whole other side of racism that I was like, ew. And I kind of had like a little like identity crisis where I was like, I don't think I'm white. Like I don't feel like you
didn't feel comfortable.
I didn't identify with like racist white people, you know. I was like, that makes me feel really uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable. And I didn't know a lot of people like that back in California, so I was like,
because Cali were mixed in Cali.
And like, it was just so, it was so weird. So I started hanging out with like the Black Student Union, Poly Club, like those were the those were the people, like I went to all of their events, like that's who I hung out with. And so when I was in college, I was like, I need brown people. And I went to like every Latin thing you could go to, like that. It was just like, if you are brown, you are my people. Because I just...
Because you guys, we had the same values.
It just made sense, and I just felt more at home, and I felt more comfortable. And so that's kind of like where it started, where I was like a lot of my friends, like in college, they were Polynesian or like, so like that's kind of where it started. And then when I moved back to California, I was like, well, I'm gonna start going to a congregation that has Polynesians in it, because where I live, there's not a huge Polynesian population. So I just started going to like the young single adult branch in Inglewood, and I was like, okay, that's where I found like friends, like my like heart and soul like friends. And actually those people are the people I moved to the Bay with, so that's how I made it to the Bay Area, was because of them. But I've had lots of Tongan friends, kind of been like shuffled into the Tongan community since college, so for like 20 years. But so that's kind of like where that sparked from. But it's good. And then I think going to Tonga just helped like open my mind even further to like the culture, and ultimately I would love to live there someday. My husband and I were like, let's make plans, let's like take care of things here, let's save, let's do stuff so we can have a house there, and like go back and forth between the two places. Because for me, Tonga is different from here. It's slower, and it's like more pure there, I feel, and like you can feel closer to the spirit, you can feel closer to God there. And I mean, you can feel that anywhere, you can obviously feel that anywhere, but I just feel like it's easier for me there, and so I just like love it. So that's kind of where my obsession came from. But I mean, like I said, I'm not like perfectly in love with everything Tongan culture related. I'm the kind of person that I see things and I can pick out like, oh, okay, these are good things that I just think are the most beautiful things ever, and these like we can just like push those aside. And my husband and I, when we first started talking, like we had a lot of those conversations about what traditions we were going to bring into our marriage and which ones we were just going to let fall by the wayside. And I think we closely align in how we feel about those different issues, especially the ones that kind of put women down a little bit, or like make women seem like not equal to their husbands. Like those are things.
Gender roles?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So my husband and I, we had a lot of conversations about how we want, like before we ever got married, about like how we wanted to raise our daughters and our sons, to think about different things. And I mean, I think there's some beautiful things where like within Tongan culture that they put women up on a pedestal, and I think that's like so beautiful. And there's so much like about respect, especially from like your matriarchal lines. Like I think that that's so beautiful. But then there's other things that are like not beautiful, like a woman's worth is dependent on how pure she is the day she gets married. And if you were not perfect, a perfect gem, you're just like not as valuable as others. Or if you do make that mistake, you're like put down. And that's not just in Tongan culture.
Yeah, that's for most cultures.
Yeah, that happens in a lot of like American culture.
Yeah.
Like that's totally how it was. Like a woman could not wear a white wedding dress if she had sex before she was married. And I'm just like, what? That doesn't make sense. Like, she's not any less valuable. Like, so I've always been like more liberal in my way of thinking when it comes to things like that. And for me, finding a Tongan man who also agreed with that way of thinking was like super important to me. And so that's probably why I stayed single for so long. Because people are like, oh, this girl is so difficult. But my husband was like, I'm up for the challenge. And he's very open-minded. And I think that that was something that really attracted me to him, is that he was like open to trying a new way of life. Like when he heard I was vegan, he was like, oh, okay, don't really know what that's about, but I guess I could try it.
Yeah.
And he was living in New Zealand when we first got, well, like when we got engaged. And I remember when I went out there, he was like really trying to like make sure I had food that I needed. And like, he was really open to like trying vegan food. And like, he was just like, oh, okay, like I could do this. And then when I left, he like still tried to make his own vegan food and was like just trying his best. And I think that for me, seeing somebody who comes from a culture that is so like rooted in like tradition, this is how we do things, this is like, we're so strong in those things, that he was able to like break free from that and like go on a different path, like that said a lot to me. And that's like really what like attracted me to him, was that he was able to do that. And so like I really did find the best partner for myself. We'll just pretend like he's not sitting in the room listening. All embarrassed.
What's some you know, what's something about the Tongan culture that we do that's kind of different from everybody else but you love?
What I absolutely love is that you could literally have $10 in your wallet, and you see somebody who's hungry, and you will give them all 10 of those dollars, knowing good and well that like you're gonna have nothing after that. And I think something that I really saw in the islands a lot was that, like, coming from America, like, we're so privileged, and we have so many things here, we have so many things at our fingertips, but the people there treated me like I was like royalty, you know? Like
you weren't a guest. Like,
we need to give her the best treatment, and we will, like, not eat for today. Like, I remember, like, I kind of have, like, a family that I used to be engaged to a guy in Tongan, okay? We didn't get married, but I'm really close with his family. They're like my family. Like every time I go to Tonga, I always feel like a closeness to them. And one time I was like staying at their house, and I just remember every day, like I was there for a whole month, and every day his mom used to like make, it was just like me and her and like the like nieces and nephews like at the house, you know? And every day she would come and bring me this like huge plate of food. And I mean, it was too much. Like, I couldn't even eat all of it, right?
Yeah.
And she was getting the food because, like, she was taking care of the kids, like, babies, you know? Like, we had lots of kids there, and she sews, too, like, and she would go next door because, like, she would take, like, the money that she got from her sewing to go next door to pay for, they had, like, a little restaurant next door, and she would come bring me this huge plate of food, and I would just eat it, and then like the first day I forced myself to like finish it all, and I was just like, okay, just like show her my gratitude, you know? But then I started observing like the rest of the day she wasn't eating. Yeah. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And then like gradually as the time went on, I just like left more and more on my plate. I'm like, oh, I'm full. And then I would notice that she would eat my food like after. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this woman is giving me everything she has. Yeah. And she's like sewing on the side and taking care of her family and like doing all this, and like she's in her 60s. Yeah. Like this is like, and she's just like giving everything that she has to make me feel comfortable. And like that was like such a powerful thing. Like I wish I could be that kind of person. Like I'm not. I'm not yet. Like I'm still American. Okay. We're like super independent. We do things for ourselves. But I see that and I want to be more like that. And there's bad sides of that too, right? Like she should be eating, right? Like hello, you got to sustain life too. Like save a little for yourself, you know? But like Americans are the extreme opposite, where they're like, I'm gonna eat all my food and watch you suffer. Like, and so I think that is like an aspect of Tongan culture that I think is so beautiful, that I want to adopt that into like how I see other things. Like there's good sides of being self-reliant and being independent and being an independent person, but there are wonderful sides to being a very giving person, and so it's kind of like marrying the two of those, finding the best in both and like bringing those together. Because like seeing that, I was just like, oh my gosh. And that's just one example. That stuff happened all the time when I was in Tonga. So like that's something that I just like absolutely love about Tongan culture.
I know, just give.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in Tonga, when I saw the first white person for the first time. I was like, oh my god. we felt like it was a celebrity. Yeah,
I definitely felt like a celebrity there. And what's funny is I'll meet people here in America and they'll be like, oh, I remember you. You came back in 2016, and they'll tell me what I was wearing, and I'm like, that's really awkward. I've never seen you before in my life. But they're like, we saw you walk, and they'll tell me exactly where I was. Like, you were walking here in town with this person, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was me. That's weird. But I love it. I like that sense of community too. Like, it's so small there. Like, but I also feel like because it's so small, you do have a good ability to make a huge impact there, because it's smaller, you know. You can be a big fish in a small pond and make a big ripple, you know, rather than like sometimes here in America you just get so lost. Like, there's so many people here, and there's like, it's hard to like know who really needs your help, because there's just like so much, it's so busy and it's so crazy. But there you can really get hyper focused on your purpose. Okay. Yeah. When you first tried Tongan food, what was your favorite food? Okay, I love Tongan food, to be honest. There's only like a couple things that I'm like, no.
Which
like,
ones?
Otaika. I can't do it.
That's the best.
No, it's. I know. I'm like, it's just like, I don't like it. It's so gross to me. I don't like anything with lamb in it. No sipi.
No sipi.
I can't. But since I was little, I've never liked lamb. Even when my family, my parents like lamb too, and they used to make it. It's something about the smell, the taste. So the first time I ever had lu was lu sipi, and so I thought, oh, lu is so disgusting. But then one day someone's like, oh, here, eat this, and I was like, oh, I hate lu in my head. I hate lu. But they gave it to me as lu kapapulu. Yeah. And I was like, this is my favorite Tongan food right here. This right here. Lu kapapulu is my absolute favorite. Like, I love corned beef.
Yeah, corned beef.
I love it. But we eat corned beef in my family too. Yeah. So we have like there's like an Irish dish that's like corned beef and cabbage. So like I grew up liking corned beef as well. It's yummy. It's not good for you. It's not good for you. It's really bad for you. But it's delicious. And we don't eat it anymore. Oh. We have lu tofu and lu vegan steak.
Did you used to eat sushi before?
Yeah, I used to like sushi, and we have vegan sushi.
Do you use sashimi?
Uh-huh.
That's all fake.
No, it's just like the way that otaika is prepared. I think it's the. I think it's the
coconut milk.
I don't know. It's like the flavor. Like it's the flavor. It's not the raw fish element of it. And maybe it's also because normally when I see otaika, it's like sitting out for like 5 hours before you actually eat it, and then I think, oh, there's probably like you know, foodborne illnesses on that. Which doesn't happen anymore now that we're vegan, because food doesn't spoil like that.
Yeah. I know. Alright, so now school. So your younger siblings are all married. Was it your younger brother and younger sister?
Yeah, my younger brother and younger sister are married to Tongans.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How'd your parents take it when you guys started married to Tongans?
Okay, so my sister was the first one, and we joke around because my mom is obsessed with my brother-in-law, my Tongan brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Like, we always joke around that that's her favorite child. She just, like, loves the Tongan people so much. They love it.
Yeah.
They absolutely love it. Yeah, so we're a multicultural family, but my parents, they, like, love their Tongan in-laws, so it's good. It's good.
Have you guys all gone to Tonga together?
Actually, I'm the only one in my family that has been. My sister-in-law is Tongan American, so she's.
Yeah.
I think she went to Tonga when she was like 1, and she hasn't been back since. She doesn't speak Tongan, but my brother-in-law is like he came here when he was a teenager, or like 12 or 13. So he was born and raised in Tonga, and speaks Tongan. But yeah, and then my husband, he's like. He's the fob of the group. So ultimately, just the two of us have been to Tonga. Yeah.
That's funny.
So they need to go. The rest of my family needs to go, but they haven't yet.
All right. We're just getting warmed up. So I do want to get into because I know you're a big advocate for women's rights.
Absolutely.
And couple equality.
Yes.
So I do want to get into that. So yeah, so what made you become a big advocate for women's rights?
So to be honest, when I was a little kid, from day one, I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, a wife, like basically wife and mother. That's what I always wanted. But as I started to grow older, I started to see that there were just like differences and like double standards in the way that boys and girls were treated and men and women were treated. It starts when we're really, really, really young.
Yep.
And I didn't understand those things, and I used to question it all the time from very young age because I grew up a tomboy.
Yep.
I loved being outside. I loved playing sports. I loved like doing rough and tumble things, and I was always told, okay, but you need to be ladylike, and you need to be like this, and you need to like, and it just like it didn't like fit with me very well, and so I like fought it the whole way. But I think as I've grown up, I've definitely seen that boys and girls are treated differently, and the expectations for them are different, especially in the church. Like, it's a huge difference. Like, the things that always bothered me were that I was always being told that I needed to dress modestly for the boys, but like the boys were never taught about modesty. And the boys were never taught that it was their responsibility to keep their thoughts pure. But as women, we were taught that we needed to be pure for the men. So that they could be pure. And it's almost like we were put like this expectation and pressure was put on women, like, oh, you need to be like this for the men, and you hold all the power. Oh, make sure you don't tempt men, and make sure you don't, and that just like never set right with me.
Do you feel like that seems like you're being like objectified, like you're prepped like a property or something?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that sometimes? Because that's what it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Like you're being served.
Yeah.
To serve a man, and then you're just being prepped as a child, and like you're not a human. I mean, you are a human being, but you're not like. I feel like it's like prepping an animal for slaughter. But I don't know what no. But it's a perfect example. Perfect example. It's extreme. It's gruesome. But it's the reality for a lot of women, and unfortunately, women face this stuff all the time. Like. It's so normal for us that even a lot of us don't even realize like how oppressed we really are because it's just been this way for so long. And I know, I mean, that's like why a lot of people have a hard time with organized religion, because it seems really oppressive towards women. But the truth is, society is oppressive. It's been since the beginning of time.
Like this is not a religion thing. This is just like a human thing. And it's been like this for a very, very, very long time. You look historically in different cultures, like this isn't, and you know, this happens in all different cultures too, like where women are supposed to be subservient to men. Like that's just like, they're supposed to be kind and gentle and they're supposed to be a certain way. And if you're not that way, you're a problem.
Yeah.
And I think for me, because I've always been very oppositional and tried to like step outside the norm, I've definitely been labeled a difficult person.
Yeah.
Oh, that girl, she's difficult. You know, like if I would break up with a guy, they would be like, oh, it's because she's difficult. Like he couldn't deal with that because, you know, she's too opinionated. And it's like,
and then you become like the example they use of all the other girls, right? Don't be like, don't.
It's terrible. It's so terrible. Like, I have always hated that. These are things that have just kind of like always driven me crazy. And because I've always been kind of vocal about things, when I see things that I don't agree with, I speak up.
Yeah.
That's my nature, you know? Like, I'm not afraid to I'm not afraid to stand alone, because I've stood alone on so many different issues my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I'm not afraid of that. Mm-hmm. And because I've had practice being like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense, you know? Like, why do we do that? I remember, like, in my youth group, like, I used to speak up to the leaders about, like, the things that they would teach us, and I would get in trouble for it because they were like, just, this is the standards, and these are the rules.
Do you remember any examples?
Like, for example, like, members of the church, like, your shorts need to be to your knees, because, I don't know, apparently seeing this part of your leg is, like, so ridiculously, like, outlandish for boys, and they can't control themselves, and apparently they want to rape you or something when they see that, is what I've been told, or how they teach you in church. But I remember, like, going to, like, just wearing shorts that were, like, to here, like, not even inappropriate, and, like, a big t-shirt, you know, like, not anything, like, sexy or anything, and, like, getting sent home because it's just inappropriate for you to, like, be wearing that. And, like, my mom kind of, like, raised me thinking that way too. And, like, it's funny because now that I'm an adult and, like, I've had lots of conversations with my mom about this, she's like, I never realized that, like, I contributed to this too. And my mom's a feminist too, but she hasn't, and she's all for, like, you know, we should have equal pay for men and women, and she's experienced pay gaps, and she's experienced, you know, like, oppression and like, because she's female. But she's like, oh yeah, but I contributed to this as well. And I'm like, yeah, we all do, because we're kind of, like, programmed and conditioned that way, and like, it's just like what we're used to and what we know. And I think that for me, that's something that I really, really, really want to change, because it drives me crazy when women are like, oh, my husband's watching our kids, he's babysitting the kids tonight. Babysitting? Men don't babysit their own children. Women don't babysit their own children. They're just being moms. A dad should be watching his own kids. Like,
taking care of his kids.
He has that same responsibility. And like, especially now in society, women work. Men work. So why is it that it's like all the responsibility on the women to like raise the kids and clean the house and cook and do all this stuff? So my husband and I had conversations about this, like, early on. Like, we're going to be equal, okay? And it's hard, because even though I think this way, even I have biases based on those gender roles. It's like something I'm trying to unprogram in myself. And it's hard. Like, we all have that. And, like, I catch myself saying that sometimes, like, oh, her outfit's inappropriate, or, you know, like, things like that, because I've heard it so many times, you know, but, like, I'm trying to reframe and, like, catch myself when I think those things. And my husband and I have had conversations about how we want to do our best to take those out of our marriage, out of our family, and that we really are going to be equal partners and build together, and that we're, like, obviously he can't physically bear a child and give birth and labor a child, but he sure as hell can change a diaper and participate in every aspect of, like, child rearing, like, of course, you know. And that we just decided that we would communicate those things to each other. And we've been married for over a year now, and this is like an ongoing conversation we have. Like, we both cook in our house, we both clean, we both work, we both take responsibility for our household and things like that, and we want to teach that to our children. Like, our sons will not be out playing while our daughters are sweeping and cooking inside. Like, that's not gonna happen, you know? And our boys will be allowed to play with dolls, because who said that boys can't play with dolls? If you expect a boy to be a father someday and help raise his child, you gotta let him play with dolls when he's 2. You know, like, so I think we create this world where it's like, oh, boys can only be interested in trucks. Their favorite color has to be blue, green, and girls, their favorite color is pink and purple. And like, my favorite color was blue growing up, and for some reason, there was this narrative that changed, that someone told me, your favorite color is purple. I think it was like my aunt or something. And she just kept telling people, and it was funny, I was telling my mom this story like a week ago, and I was like, my favorite color has never been purple. She's like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, never. But someone created in their mind that girls need to like pink and purple and can't like blue. Like, who created this, you know? And like, I just, every step of the way, I've questioned those things and saw that I don't want those things in my life, and it takes work. I'm still working on breaking through some of those things, and I think I've made a lot of progress even in the last like the most progress in the last like 4 years in this area. I think before that I used to think like, no, I just want to be a stay-at-home mom and like let a man take care of me and do like
most Mormon girls.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I have a lot to contribute to society outside of just being a mom and cooking, and you know, like, I don't know, maybe my husband likes to cook too. He can cook as well, and like, we can share in all these responsibilities and then have our own individual identities too, and not do those things. So we have definitely like let go of some of those traditions. I mean, even getting married, like, we didn't do like a traditional like engagement where like he gets down on his knees, or like we didn't do like the whole, I mean, it wasn't American tradition or Tongan tradition by any means. When we got engaged, we both had rings for each other, and we both like, you know, committed and promised to each other. Like, we're kind of asking each other to get married, because like, why does it have to be the man? Or why, like, to me, I just feel like, and I just told him, like, you're not asking my parents for permission, because I'm not property. Like, I'm not property. You don't need to ask anyone for permission to marry me, because I'm like a human that has consented to marry you, and like, you don't need to ask anybody. Like, there's, like, we don't need to do those things. And so I've seen that a lot. I've seen it in Tongan culture.
Yeah, it's a lot of Tongan culture.
It's really...
And being Mormon too. Right?
Yeah, and in the church. Yeah, like, those two things, I'm like, oh yeah, they're like heavily like, you know, like, there's a lot of like issues with like gender roles that I think we just need to fix and change, you know? And it's, yes, it gets outside of what is the norm and what is like normally been taught, but it's so worth it, because there's so many beautiful things that women have to offer the world, and they're already offering it to the world, but like, the way it's all set up is like, it's expected for them to be like that, and like, we're just gonna praise men for just being very basic, and then women, it's like, we're so harsh on women. Like, it's crazy. It drives me crazy. It drives me crazy.
You see that among, not only with yourself, but you see that a lot with your friends that who are Mormon, that go into, like, the women that go dealing with the same issues. You see a lot. Do you see that a lot of the women that go, like your Mormon girlfriends?
Like all my Mormon friends. I do see it a lot. Like, especially like in the way they talk about like now that they're married, even like how they like talk about what their husbands do for them, and like even how their husbands treat them, and I'm just like, whoa, like, that shouldn't be a thing, you know? Like, why why are you home all day working? Like, especially for the ones that are stay-at-home moms, like, it's like this expectation that a woman stays home all day, which, by the way, taking care of a child is a full-time job. I know, I do it. I'm a nanny, a professional nanny who gets paid a full-time salary to take care of a child while their parents go and work. But why do we expect a woman to stay at home all day and then cater to her husband, and her husband gets to come home? He was working too, but she was working, right? Taking care of the baby. And then the man expects them to cook. Or why is the house not clean? Or why is this, what were you doing all day? As if taking care of a child is not hard freaking work, you know? And I think especially with my like LDS friends, like that's really common. I hear that common complaint that their husband's making complaints like that, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. And then most women, I think it's part of our nature to not speak up, because when we do speak up, we're difficult. Yeah, difficult. And we just try to, just brush that under the rug, and then they just do it for, you know, their whole entire marriage, 40 years, 50 years, and they're miserable doing it, and that's called oppression. That is called oppression. And a lot of women are in that situation and like don't even realize it, and they just go along with it because it's easier, because men are not used to that. But I think we need to have more conversations with men and help men understand that. I'm actually really excited that we're having a son to be able, because everyone's like, oh, daughters are so much fun, and I was like, yeah, but with sons you can raise a boy to be a feminist, and to treat women differently and view women differently, and be in control of his own thoughts, and not and never like teach him about consent, teach him about, you know, like being in control of himself, because men aren't taught that. Men are taught that it's the woman's responsibility. If a man has sex with a girl, she's a hoe. He's just a man. Nothing. But she's the hoe. What? That makes no sense. Like, and then they get married, and then his whole family judges her for giving it up before marriage. But what about your son? Like, and she's not as valuable as your son, your precious son, who did that with other people. Like, just to me, it like the double standards, they just don't make sense to me, and I think we need to question them more. We need to have more conversations about it. We need to talk about it. We need to be open with it, and we need to be willing to get outside of those and change and not get married to somebody who thinks that way. So
plus, like, you know, I think that's, we should have those conversations, but it's kind of, you know, it's difficult because, like, I feel like in the church, you know, they push marriage early. So, like, you know, if you don't get married early, then the older you get, then it's like, you know, sometimes you feel like it's something is wrong with you, especially for women, right? Did you ever feel like that as you got older? Everybody asking you when you get married? Oh my gosh, all the time. And
I know there was whisperings of like, she's difficult. She's picky. She's too picky. Well, let me tell you, my husband and I are 10.5 years apart. He's 10.5 years younger. So my pickiness was actually just waiting for my husband to grow up enough to be developed and ready to marry someone like myself. And I think what's really cool about that is that he's not perfect. We're both not perfect, especially on like gender roles, because we both come from cultures where that's like ingrained in us. But we are both committed to overcome those things together, and we talk about it often. Actually, when we were like dating, we had lots of conversations about this. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to talk about at first, you know? A lot of people don't want to have these kind of conversations because they're just like, that's awkward. And I'm like, no, it's not awkward. Like, this is your future. And like, you need to like lay out the expectations like at the beginning, and if that makes me a difficult person, like, so be it. I avoided marrying people who like had severe addictions and who've had so many problems like later on in their marriage because they like didn't, you know, weren't able to talk about those things. And I think you don't need a perfect person to make a marriage work, but like you have to have like that openness and that communication. And I think in the church we focus so much on like marrying young, but we don't focus on like developing the skills to like really get you through a marriage successfully.
I think for me, just my personal experience of knowing certain people, my friends, getting married and stuff. And sometimes they get married and it doesn't work out. And a lot of times when I talk to them, some of them just say, because in our culture we kind of push people to get married, but what I heard, the feedback I got from them was that they wish they would teach people how to pick a partner, not just get a partner. Yeah. Sometimes when you're young, you just get married. And you get married, you figure it out as you get married. But I think it's important to like you said, like have conversations before.
And not even just pick a partner, but also learn how to be a good partner.
Yeah.
That is something that I took from the very beginning of me being single. Like, I thought I was going to get married at 23. I was on a mission when I was 23.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well that's not happening. I'm getting home when I'm almost 25. Okay, so I'll be 25 when I get married.
Yeah.
But when I was 25, it didn't happen for me, and I was dating different people, and it just like wasn't clicking. Things weren't working, and I'm like, okay, something wrong with me. So you start thinking that, and then there was this moment where I realized instead of looking for this perfect partner, how about I just focus on being a good partner?
Yeah.
Like, why don't I focus on being the kind of partner that I would want my future partner to be?
Yeah.
And so I think, oh my gosh, when I was younger, we used to make the list of all of the things we wanted our future husband to have. Have we all done that?
No, I've seen.
Do men do that?
No.
Because every girl has done that. No. I'm pretty sure. And we also have a list of like baby names that we want to name our children. Okay.
Girls, I've seen it.
Yeah. Okay. So all the girls probably in the world, like we have made a list of these qualities, these magic qualities, especially church girls.
Eternal companion.
Yes. So we make this list of all these things, but we forget that like these are perfection traits, right? And we are not the kind of person that would match up with someone who has those traits.
Yeah, you don't have those. Some of those qualities you don't even have.
Yeah, you're like, I want him to be perfectly kind. Girl, I know you are not perfectly kind. Like, you're definitely not kind. Like, you got a long way to go. So for me, I made a list on what kind of person I wanted to be with, so I could make sure that I was that kind of person. Yeah. And so at the top of my list, very, very, very top of my list, was someone who could accept me for who I was and not want to change me and like just accept me the way I was. And so when I was dating, when someone would call me difficult, or when someone would say, oh, she's too much, or when someone, in my head, I just took that as, you are not my person.
Yeah.
Because you can't accept me the way I am, and I'm not changing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be outspoken. Yeah. Do you want a quiet girl? You need to go find someone else. Yeah. Like, you want someone who's not passionate about what she does? You gotta find someone else. Like, you have a problem with me speaking up when I see things are wrong? Like, you gotta find someone else, because I'm not changing those things about me. That's who I am, and that's a big, huge part of me. And so I saw what qualities I wanted, and I tried to live those qualities, and that's how I found my husband, who literally is my match. Yeah. Like, we match in so many areas of life because I tried to emulate those qualities and I attracted those qualities. Yeah. And so I wish that we focused more on that. Like, how about you focus on being a good person instead of judging everybody? Because I feel like dating is just like judgment. Yeah. Like, he's a terrible guy. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I heard this about him. Yeah. Oh, I saw him with this girl. Yeah. Oh, he's dated lots of girls. And like, it's funny is when this happens a lot in the Tongan community, when someone starts, oh, what's his name? What's his last name? Who's his family? Oh, and then they start digging and find out all these stories, which, what does that have anything to do with him being a good partner for you? Yeah. Has nothing to do with it. And I think we need to like get away from that, because it's really terrible. Yeah. It's really terrible. So.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine, it must have been a tough journey for you. Just hearing it from my, the girls I know, my cousins, they're in the church as well. Just hear their stories, and they're not even 30 yet, but they just feel this pressure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're only 23, 24.
Yeah.
You got hella time. But they
It's
just,
terrible.
but they see all their friends getting married. Plus, social media, everybody's posting their couple pics and their engagement. It's like,
Well, we also do have like a biological pressure women do.
Yeah,
because
biological clock,
you
yeah.
can only have babies so long, and
Yeah.
let me tell you, I got pregnant when I was 36, and already society labels me as having a geriatric pregnancy, meaning I'm an old lady
Yeah.
to have a baby.
it's like a novelty.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm 36, guys. Like, I'm not a dinosaur. I'm not dead. Like, and I'm healthy and active, and I'm fine. Like, this is so weird. But that's part of society, too, like, we are taught, like, oh, women, like, men need to go for the young women who are,
Yeah.
fertile. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's also a biological thing
Yeah.
that happens,
Yeah.
but it's just like, that doesn't mean because you're older you're less than or not worthy of,
Yeah.
a good, happy, fulfilling life,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. I talk to those girls like all the time. You're just like the right person. You know when you find that person.
Yeah.
Don't
Not
settle.
only that, but you just like have to like, I think when I like between 25 and 27, I got that like, it was hard for me to like see my friends get married because I was
Yeah.
like, why isn't it happening to me?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, like that girl's 22 and how come she just like, or how it was so easy for her to find someone, and like, oh, they're buying a house already, and I
Yeah.
don't, and it's just like, at some point you have to go, is that going to make you better, or are you just going to be bitter?
Yeah,
like bitter or better?
Yeah.
Like, ask yourself. And comparing yourself to others normally makes you bitter.
Yeah.
So stop.
Yeah.
Stop comparing yourself to others. And that is not just with marriage and relationships, but like your health and fitness journey. Like, stop looking at the way other people look and just focus on you and compare yourself to you. Your professional life, stop looking at what other people have and focus on you and making yourself better and changing and focusing on yourself. Once you turn inward and you start working on yourself, you'll attract the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll attract the right person, you'll attract the right job, you'll attract all the things in your life that you need. So be better, not bitter.
And I always tell my friends, like, whenever you see people's life, and then there's always you don't see the behind the scenes. A lot of people, I don't know. I know a lot of people portray like they have a great marriage and they're happy, but I know for sure because I know what's going on. Like, they're not this stuff going on the other privately.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, like, just when your time comes, because it's better to be happy, not only in public but also be happy in private.
Absolutely.
But don't just get married or be with the wrong person because you want to have the perception you're happy to please everybody, but then you go home and you realize, oh shoot, this person is not the person
True.
I'm not happy with.
True.
But you're already in it now, so it's like,
Yeah.
you can't, it's hard for you to take that back now.
Yeah, for me, I look back and I'm like, it was definitely worth the wait. I got married when I was 35, almost 36. It was the right time,
Yeah.
right person. It all made sense. And even though I wanted to be married when I was 23, like, it was worth the wait.
Yeah.
And I think I came into this marriage like a better person because I focused on myself and I continue to improve. Like, yeah, being married is hard and different, and especially if you've been independent for like 35 years, then going to like sharing your life with someone,
Yeah.
that's hard too. And as long as you're like constantly working to improve yourself, like, you'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think that we've pretty much come to the end.
Awesome. Awesome. We covered all our topics.
We covered all our topics. We talked about your life, talked about your story, how you grew up. And at the end, I just always ask everybody, like, your last thoughts, is just sharing something to everybody, because I know you've gone through a lot, you've shared a lot of stuff about your story. But I know a lot of people that watch this, I know some people will resonate with it, and you shared a lot of things, especially for women.
Yeah.
You shared a lot of things I know a lot of people go through, especially for women. So, knowing who you are now compared to the person you were before, so what advice would you give to yourself, but also the people who are in your shoes? They're probably going through the same things you went through in the beginning of your life. What would you be your best advice to give them?
I think my biggest advice is just like be fearless.
Yeah.
No, don't be fearless. Be courageous.
Yeah.
Because fear is normal.
Yeah.
But when like honestly, you literally have all the tools and resources to be a happy, successful, thriving human. Like we have it inside of us. We just need to be courageous and do the scary things that are going to get us to that place. Because I know I held myself back a lot because of fear, and fear of judgment, fear of failure, definitely. Fear of what other people within my community, and fear of loss of acceptance, and feeling like an alien and feeling like I didn't belong, and I let a lot of that drive me. But once you get past all of that and you just like be courageous and allow yourself to go off on a different path and just forge your own way, like even if it's different, even if it's outside the norm, like the most beautiful journeys that have been taken are on the off the beaten path, right? Like when you're hiking, the worst trails are when there's like hundreds of people on them. The best trails are the ones that are secluded, because you get to get in touch with who you really are. So I think just like being courageous and not being afraid to step off that normal path and that normal way of life, and being different and doing things that really make you happy as an individual. I think that
sounds good. Cool.